we are going to maybe dig a little bit deeper, and you got a wonderful overview, and you heard it directly from Margaret. Now we will have a conversation, and there are some questions that came to my mind, and I wanted to know more. So there will be 4 topics. My first topic is about the process. And it's like, so let me start with the question of what is your definition of art, and what makes
an easy one. Wow.
Well, I would go backwards, and I would say life is art.
If you know how to live it.
If you live it, you don't have to know anything.
Now, I mentioned to you that there is much improvisation here, and everybody has a different experience or definition for improvisation. So, and much of the work has been framed here by the CDs and also the way, the process that Margaret takes is also, she's improvising, and it seems like she's having a good time. So I want her to talk about the improvisation, what is her definition of improvisation, and then let's not forget that she's also a musician. And there is, especially in contemporary art, jazz, there is a lot of improvising. So I would like her to combine different ideas and also tell us about what does she think about improvisation.
Well, you can't think about it too much. Improvising to me is letting whatever it is that you're working with, whether it's clay or music or dance or whatever it might be, letting it sort of tell you what it wants to do, and so that it's not something that you are improvising. I think if that's too strict of an idea, right away you've kind of locked it all down. Oh, I'm improvising now. How shall I improvise this? So it's basically being open to discovery and imagination and getting excited about something that you see. And then the hard part is being unafraid, not caring what anybody might think about it, just wanting to do it because it's this dance, if you will.
Yeah, you let the control lead you, and then do you see that because there is not that control and you have this openness, does it lead to creativity and invention?
It leads to surprises. Whoa, look at that. So yes.
It's because you have an open mind.
Well, I try, but no matter how open you might think your mind is, I'm sure there's some place where it shuts down. And so I think the trick is to recognize it when you're there. Hey, I'm shutting down. And then decide, seeing what happens. Are you going to stay shut down, or are you going to see what happens if you try that? To me, the key was 2 words, say it all. What if? Whoa, I mean, that's it.
Okay, now knowing how you work and the way you explain the process, there is a lot of intuition that is built into it. Can you elaborate a little bit about the intuitive aspect that goes into creating these quilts and the selection of them? And is it something that it can be explained even?
Well, yes, if you can explain what is intuition. I don't know what that is.
That's why I'm asking you.
I don't know either.
Does anybody here want to volunteer or has a good intuitive sense?
I think actually it could be dangerous. You might be intuiting a thing that wouldn't further your discovery. I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't take credit for being intuitive.
Okay. Antigone, do you have something to comment?
No, what I was going to say is that I love what Margaret said earlier about the material, leading the way. So in that sense, I think that is an expression. I mean, you were talking about it around improvisation, but it's also intuitive in the sense that you are not controlling it. You are allowing, you're creating space for what the material is telling you to.
Well, that reminds me of my oft-repeated story. You can take a break if you've heard this a million times. But when I was with those women, and we didn't speak any common language, and I was watching them, and one day I took a translator with me, and I asked him, why did she put that yellow there? And he could not understand the question. He didn't know what why meant. And then when he finally understood, he translated it to her. She couldn't understand it either. When she finally maybe got it, she just looked at me and went, So maybe that is intuition.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Somebody else want to comment?
Intuition is kind of like a feeling.
Yeah, and maybe it's feeling. And we can't explain that, and shouldn't even be trying to.
Well, many artists use intuition a lot, and they don't depend really on the rational. That's like where I'm coming from.
Are these artists that you like or that you don't like?
No, it's just a phenomenon, that's all. Okay, so now we are going to move. Oh, I have one more question about in this here. What aspect of the process is most exciting to you in creating the Kawandis? Is there such a thing?
There's no moment more exciting than any other moment. But there is a moment that's different than all other moments, and that's when it's finished, because they're constructed from the side in. So you're started on the edge, and you've been going round and round and round, laying on new fabrics. You don't have an image in your mind of what it's going to look like. How could you? Because you're making decisions all the time of what little piece to put here. And so when you get it all finished and hang it up and look at it, it's like, I would say that's the most exciting. It's like, whoa, how did this happen?
Magic. Okay, wonderful, thank you. Great answer. So now we're going to move a little bit into introspection. And what I want to ask you is, what did you learn about yourself in doing this work? What surprised you?
I I think I was very disturbed and frustrated when I realized that I could never learn people in another culture. I could never ever learn and copy their sensibility. I thought if I could learn how to do this, I could learn how to do what they did and say what they were saying, but I'm not them. And that was very upsetting to me to find out, and I learned that you can't learn another person's consciousness and creativity or experience, their life experience. You can't learn that, and so you just jolly well better value yours and develop yours. And so that's when I think Green started doing that. It just I can do, well, what do I want? Who am I? What's wanting to happen from here, rather than admire as I might something else. I can't ever do that. I don't know, it's not my culture, it's not me. That was very important for me.
Oh, it's a major revelation. It's very important also to admit to it. Okay, my other question is, there have been much music throughout your life, and I was very attracted and very, very curious about, you are also a composer. And what I want to ask you is, like, when you compose or when you, let's say, play Bach, so you know how it's being composed and so forth, and then you switch and you take on a different discipline, like the quilts, which is really a different way. And I just want to know how your mind works, and do you separate yourself from the way you compose, or is there a way that you transfer these techniques into quilting?
Well, in my composition, yes, but not in my playing of other composers' music. Concert musicians, I mean, they're not creating that music. That music didn't come from their gut. They are spending a lifetime mastering the ability to be able to present it, to play it. But it's somebody else's work. Right, so there's no really comparison there for having it be something that you just completely invented,
But taking these techniques and transferring it to another medium, is there something?
I never made that. I could see a connection between that and my compositions because they're all based on mathematic formula. And they're not in a tradition of composing music. They're based on math, and they're very, very precise, and they deal with building up overtone layers, and they're very intricate. That I could say maybe is and there's something that thrilled me, that I liked making happen. It came from me, it was me.
I think that's a very interesting insight from us to learn from you, and and that's what I was trying to connect between the two, and I think you explained it in how you do your music.
I don't do music anymore. It was my life, but then I got another life.
But sometimes it can come back. So now, there was at one point that you also mentioned in the talk and briefly you said something about rejection. And you had an experience that you were brave enough to share it on YouTube. And I love that video. And I want you to go back in memory and talk about that experience, what led to the rejection. And what is really important is we all have experiences with the rejection, but each of us reacts very differently. And I want you to talk about that.
I don't remember that video, but I certainly remember the rejection.
That's about the letter where you were asked to create the video for an art fair, and they asked you to do something about water, and you submitted.
Yes, yes. So, so rejection is not the end. I mean, that's the most important thing about rejection. Is just rejection is not an end of anything. It just means they don't want it. That's their problem. You love it. And so I've had lots of rejections. I entered lots of calls for entry. And most of these pieces, a lot of these pieces have been rejected by museums, galleries. And I had enough rejections a couple of years ago that I asked the gallery in Berkeley, Hello Stitch Gallery, would they be interested in me having a show of my rejected quilts? They thought it was a great idea. It was a very successful show, and what green was there, red and blue were there. Now look where they are. They were rejected. Meant nothing.
Yeah, there is no good explanation why. And being in academia and being a writer, that your manuscripts are rejected many times. And some people really have a very hard time accepting that without realizing, oh, I can improve on it. Maybe let me try again. And it's not something personal.
Or you could write it, you could not even feel you had to improve it, that it needed any improvement at all, but you had this idea to do this other book, or, I mean, it could really, you don't have to get stuck with it.
And that's exactly the advice that I wanted to hear from you. Okay, now I want you to talk about critiquing your work, or what are some of the criteria, or when do you know this is perfect, do I like it, or something is missing? Because can be a very subjective thing, and can you be objective of your work?
I don't think so. I love it all. I'm sorry, I don't care. I'm not doing it for anybody. That's the secret. I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it because I just like doing it. I just want to do it, and I'm obviously fairly obsessed with doing it, and that's enough for me.
Okay, well, anybody else has experience with maybe being on the professional side of critiquing? Deborah, do you have something to say?
Me?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm calling on Deborah because she was a curator, and so I thought that she has seen a lot of work that was also rejected. So go ahead and talk about it.
well, I think first of all, being a professional artist in any medium these days, there's a lot of competition for, small amount of exhibit space or gallery. And that's part of the process of being an artist. And what Margaret has said about having her piece rejected, she does the work for herself. She's the first, she has to please herself. And she's her own critic. So I think that's the most important thing. And having a piece rejected is just part of the course for all of us artists. It's just, you have to, you do the work because you love to do the work, and you need to create or make something beautiful or powerful or statement, and then if someone doesn't get it, that doesn't mean that the work is invalid. So that's my comment about that. In terms of criticism, I think also artists are self-critical of their work. And it's evident that Margaret has a really amazing eye. I mean, in terms of how her pieces are placed, the elements within her quilts, they're abstracted, and they just somehow come together because she has this critical idea, she has this understanding of balance. And I don't have any critique about her work. It would be very hard to really critique it because I think it is spectacular.
Okay. To go back earlier to what Deborah said, one factor that nobody's mentioned is making a living.
Right.
And if there's most artists are that's their life support, that's their income. And so then it gets very complicated because then you're critiquing as to what you think people will buy. What will the market hold? I mean, I think that just comes along with being a professional artist. And so then it's no longer a question of what's pleasing you. It's, that can get really sort of, like Kenneth Nolan didn't want to be painting stripes for 30 years. They sold.
On the other hand, a lot of artists have second jobs. They have a job to support their art.
Yeah.
They don't have to paint stripes for the rest of their life.
Okay. I'm moving now to another topic, and that's about collecting, collectors, and collections. And those are very important topics when it comes to art. And I just wanted for you to talk a little bit about your relationship to your collectors. And let's take it from here.
I have two people that have bought quite a few of my works. So I consider them, they're sort of like my patrons. I never try to get them to buy anything. I just invite them to see when I have something, and they say, I want that. So, but I only have the two collectors. Maybe now these young men came all the way to Ruth's table from Brooklyn to see my work, and they bought 2 pieces from my gallery. Maybe they're potential collectors, but let's see, how many pieces we're going to have to own before you would call them a collector?
But it's a good question, and it has to be a little bit more than 2 pieces. And you invest a lot.
Right.
You have a philosophy about it.
Right.
What you collect, what you don't. Some people are eclectic, and some people will collect just women's art, for example.
Oh, well, I'm up for that.
And so they are different. And it is also for the love of the art and what they do. And unfortunately, in today's world, our collecting activities have been corrupted, and so many of the very moneyed people, they buy it in order to sell it and make more money. But there are still some who remain true to the idea of collecting, so there is something that can be given and preserved, given to museums and being preserved, because more often the art that is created during one's lifetime is a reflection of the time that we have lived You have a very large body of work, and also, and I'm bringing this question up because our polarized world right now, and then let's say when we talk about American quilt. So my question, and here you are, somebody who's traveled the world, learned so much from other cultures, and is bringing something here, an element that is foreign. And what I want to ask you is, how is this accepted into the American canon?
Well, it wasn't. It's just starting to be accepted. I was lucky to get into shows, and when I did get into shows, when I would go and stand off in a corner and watch people going through the gallery, they would walk right past my pieces. Because when I started doing these, nobody had ever seen a Kawandi. It didn't fit. And people, when they are seeing something, they don't know what it is, but they know what everything else is. They like to look at what they know. I mean, it's just standard. I mean, they didn't know how to look at them. You can't look at these pieces the way you look at a block, a very, very simple block piece where when you see it, you've seen it, and that's that. You know what it is. You don't know what this is the first time you look at it. It takes a lot of looking at it, and the longer you look at it, you see something. Well, nobody had done that in this country that I know of. I was the first person, and it took a long time to get people. I had to keep plugging away, and then if I would get an article about me in a magazine, that happened a few times, and so the people it started growing, but it's now, these are a dime a dozen, not the ones I do, of course, but the style, there's hundreds of workshops online how to do this. So it's come a very, very long way, and it's gotten to the point where I'm so interested in trying out new things, I don't even necessarily think of them as being Kawandis anymore. They're just my art.
So now it brings me to my last topic, and it's a very important one, and it's about legacy. And legacy is most artists or contributors to society. They think about their body of work, how it's going to be treated, collected, preserved, and so forth. And it's very important as an artist to think about your legacy, because if it goes to an institution or somewhere, people, scholars want to study it, and there's
gloves.
So I would like you to, I'm sure that you have thought about your legacy in particular, legacy in general, and what advice can you give us?
I haven't thought about it at all. No, I haven't.
So can you think about it now? Like, is it important to really have a plan and say, or it's just like the organizing the archival. You must have an archive of the pictures, and I know you have all the videos that are very, very useful. And
but
it will help.
I haven't archived. I have no legacy to my 2,000 videos on YouTube. Those aren't in a shape. My 20 art books, they're not designated where they're going. My tapes of concerts. They're not organized or have any plan. None of the many things that I have done, for some reason or other, I'm just not interested.
Okay, you are not off the hook. I know you have daughters, and one of them is still here, right?
I don't think that.
No, I'm just saying, if they are interested, are you just going to leave it to them and they will have to deal with that?
Probably. Okay, she knows that's the case.
Uh-oh.
And that's just probably she's going to be stuck with these mountains of stuff.
Oh, no.
This is a conversation you can have as you go on.
Oh, dear.
We don't talk about it.
Okay, this is one legacy that you're leaving us.
Well, thanks a lot.
You will be remembered for that. Well, as if you don't have any questions,
Well, maybe they do.
no, I'm just want to open it, definitely. Please, go ahead.
I'm sorry that I came in late, but I'm wondering if you already told people, do you try to use, it's very mundane, cotton? I mean, do you mix, for example, materials that would stress differently when you hang it, like silk or cotton, or did you talk about that already?
No, but thank you very much for asking that question. I will use anything. I don't care. I just made a quite wonderful little piece where I used a whole lot of images of Homer Simpson that were on a very stretchy, used little boy's t-shirt. But they were Homer Simpson. They were so cute. And I knew just what I wanted to do with them. I will use anything if, well, maybe that's where intuition is. Yeah, it just strikes you. You just think, oh, that's perfect. And I don't care what it is. Acrylic, knits, sure they're hard, but you deal with it. Look at Rosie Lee Tompkins. She used everything. It didn't matter. Anything she would use. And that's why they're so exciting, her works. You're just so amazed what you see that velvet there. What's that doing there? And it just sparks it.
I would just make a quick comment that ties in here, that it's a conservation nightmare.
Yeah.
One thing you do collect is fabric scraps. And I was trying in my mind to envision what your studio looks like. How do you do that? You must have enormous production.
Well, I do. It's a little too much almost. Yes, so now I've just, somebody offered to let me do a scrap run. Oh, yes. So, you know, she goes to scrap a lot for fabrics. And then I was thinking, I can be her scrap. I'll just put all this stuff in a bag and she can come and get it. Because I was going to take a lot of stuff to scrap. I have, you know, your best work is done, I think, when you have a limited amount of stuff to work with. If you have mountains of stuff, you don't have any parameters. There's no limit. So yeah, it is, and I have it. I have drawers. I have chests of drawers. Sometimes they're pretty hefty drawers. Maybe, you know, like this big, maybe that deep. I have 8 drawers like that. One is just full of purple, but every kind of fabric you can name, it's all, sometimes I color sort like that. Or I have a drawer that's just surreal, what I call images that make it kind of surreal. It's a mess though, it's a mess. There's the two big challenges are dealing with all your fabric and dealing with all your work. What you don't want to fold these up. They've got to be rolled and a certain way, and they have to be treated a certain way, and you have to make sure you keep the dampness out of them. And that's a big job. Actually, I need I wouldn't say slave necessarily.
An assistant?
But, yes, amanuensis. I need somebody who wants to come in and who says, Margaret, I want to help you out with this. Can we work something out? What could we barter, or how could we work where I could do this kind of stuff for you? I could keep your scraps sorted. I could keep the quilts rotated, or I can, do this kind of thing, because there's a lot of stuff to do, especially if you're active online. Like, that's one reason I made it, I'll tell you, I'll admit. I made it from nowhere to here because of being online. Just being steady, putting stuff up all the time. Sometimes I made a whole quilt online. I quilt every day and showing everything and working every aspect of it. I did that with 5 or 6 quilts, and then I made DVDs out of that and sold those DVDs. And I've been promoting myself. I don't have an agent. I was actually thinking so that it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time doing all that. Yeah.
I want to say thank you to you for going to Hello Stitch so many years ago. And you taught me to
Doing what?
You taught me to Kawandis. And it was a very small piece, but you become very grand and large with your sizes. So I'm wondering, what is your workspace and how do you accomplish the largeness of these?
On a table like this, because I cannot sit on the floor. I cannot tuck one end of it under my right thigh and hold the other end of it down with my left foot. That's what they're doing. I can't do that. I can't even get down there. So, but I work on a table.
And you still just pull as you go?
And then I've got yes, you don't want to ever give that up. You don't want to get an idea of what you're going to do, and you get your stuff out there, and this is what I'm going to do, and then I may put that, here and whatever. What they're doing most of the time is they're here, they're putting on their piece of fabric here on the edge there. They're putting down one of those little pieces here. This is all just blank, right? There's nothing in there yet. And stuff may be dangling over there, waiting to be tacked down. But they're not, I never saw them looking and seeing, to get a bird's eye view here and see how this is going to work. How is this piece going to work? If you use the word balance, it's not it's not balanced done that way. It's subliminal. I don't know. It's innate or something, because they're never figuring out how the whole big thing is going to work. No, you're going to have a great time. You're doing a big one. Oh, it's just a fantastic, surprising. What's the largest one you've done?
Your Japanese style.
Oh,
So small.
oh, well, yes, but that's still, I mean, they're just as good, I think. Yeah, but it's fun doing a big one. It's a little more dangerous. I mean, you know, this is not psychologically. You could say this is challenging. I mean, when you start, you know you're about to go on a big trip, and you're not sure where you're going to go. That's what, you know, that's just a wonderful thing to be able to have.
Did you have a question?
Would you tell us about your backs? Do you try to have a whole piece on the back, or do they piece?
Well, what they're doing is just on the sari.
No, on your backs here, which I can't
With
see.
you.
So,
With
your back
I'm
piece.
wondering
Which one?
what they're. Any of them, I'd love to see. We could see that back, which is an interesting fabric. Does it relate? Do you kind of think about it when you're
I try to
making it?
never
Like-
think about anything,
Not necessarily in the back. We just
because you
You
get
have
more
another career
surprises.
in stand-up.
Yeah.
Delivery is terrific.
Well, they do not.
Oh.
look at the bottom. The bottom, maybe, I guess.
This is a very imaginative, there's I'm stuck with what I've got at the time. If I've got like what I had on this one, I had this, and so I used it. You just use what you have.
Yeah.
You don't want to get uptight about it. So this was a sarong from Indonesia. I use polyester quilt fabric. They're using rags, but since it's all done by hand, there's no machine involved. So if you're using, if you have a lot of layers of fabric, it's very hard getting the needle through. Well, I change. All my early work, I was using the thread that I still get from India. It's a 3-ply, very soft cotton thread. It just feels like the real thing to me. But I use sashiko thread and pearl cotton.
Whatever you feel like using. And you have to tip the ones in the same quilt?
There's nothing you can't do. There's that's the thing, there are no restrictions. You know, we're our culture, the way we've been taught and the way we learn how to do things, we start with rules. It's just so backwards, you know. It's too bad. So, I mean, what? You just have to do the outlandish thing. You just remember, who cares?
Okay, I think that would be a good place to end. And at the beginning of my introduction, I promised you that you will learn a lot about Margaret. And I think I satisfies that.
Yes, you did.
So thank you, Margaret.